The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. It was bigger than any human space station, stretching nearly 5 miles from end to end. The ship's hull gleamed with a strange silver material that seemed to shift. Colors in the sunlight. Commander Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the orbital station New Geneva, watching the alien vessel approach. His hands rested calmly on the control panel, but his heart was beating fast. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Galactic Council, and everything had to go perfectly. The alien ship slowed as it reached Earth's outer defense perimeter. Jake could see smaller ships detaching from the main vessel. These were the shuttlecraft that would bring the alien delegation to meet with human representatives. Dr. Lisa Barnes walked onto the bridge carrying a thick folder of papers. She was Earth's top expert on alien life, though until today all her work had been theoretical. Her brown hair was tied back in a neat bun, and she wore the formal blue uniform of the Earth Science Division. "The translator programs are ready," she told Jake. "We've studied their language patterns from the messages they sent ahead. The computer should be able to handle basic communication." Jake nodded and activated the communication system. "Alien vessel, this is Commander Murphy of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are welcome in our space. Please follow the navigation beacons." "To Docking Bay 7? The response came in a voice that sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. "We acknowledge, Human Commander. The Galactic Council evaluation team is honored to meet with your species." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the docking bay as the alien shuttle landed. The bay had been cleared of all weapons and military equipment. Instead, tables with earth flowers and fruits had been arranged to show human peaceful intentions. The shuttle door opened with a hissing sound. The first alien to step out was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. It stood nearly 8 feet tall on 4 long legs that bent in directions human legs could not. Its head was triangular with 3 large eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. The creature wore a flowing robe made of material that seemed to move on its own. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthani Empire," the alien said through the translation device attached to its robe. "I speak for the Galactic Council in this evaluation of your species." Behind Zethkar came 11 other aliens, each more strange than the last. One looked like a walking tree with silver bark. Another resembled a giant spider made of crystal. A third appeared to be a floating ball of gas, held together by some kind of energy field. Dr. Barnes stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Zethkar. I am Dr. Lisa Barnes, and I will be your guide during your stay here." The aliens looked around the docking bay with their various eyes and sensors. Jake noticed that several of them seemed surprised by something, though he could not tell what. "Your space station is well defended," Zethkar observed. "We detected many weapon systems as we approached." "Standard defensive measures," Jake replied. "We believe in being prepared, but we hope never to use those weapons." One of the smaller aliens, which looked like a floating jellyfish with mechanical parts, spoke up. "Prepared for what?" "Your star system shows no signs of hostile neighbors." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. "We prepare for unknown threats," Jake explained. "Our history has taught us that peace must be protected." The aliens seemed to find this concept strange. They whispered among themselves in languages the translator could not handle. "Ambassador," Zethkar gestured with one of his forearms. "Perhaps you could show us more of your civilization? The Council wishes to understand human culture before making recommendations." For the next several hours, Lisa led the alien delegation through different parts of the space station. They visited the medical bay, where Dr. Amy Foster demonstrated human healing techniques. The aliens were curious about why humans spent so much effort saving individual lives. "In galactic civilization," explained a tall alien that looked like a walking crystal formation, "damaged individuals are typically recycled for the benefit of the group." "Your methods seem inefficient," Dr. Foster looked shocked. "Every human life has value. We never give up on someone just because they are injured or sick." The aliens made notes on their recording devices. In the training center, Captain Ryan Cole was running combat exercises with a group of human soldiers. The aliens watched as the humans practiced fighting techniques, but they seemed confused by what they saw. Your warriors follow very specific rules even during practice combat, Zethkar noted. They stop fighting when opponents are defeated. They provide aid to the injured. This is most unusual. Captain Cole wiped sweat from his forehead. We call them rules of engagement. Even in war, there are things that are right and things that are wrong. A spider-like alien with 6 legs and glowing red eyes clicked its mandibles. In our experience, war is about survival. Rules during combat seem counterproductive. Maybe, Ryan said, but rules are what separate us from animals. We fight when we have to, but we don't become monsters. The alien delegation spent more time observing human military training. They watched soldiers learn to provide medical aid to wounded enemies. They saw practice scenarios where humans chose to protect civilians even when it put themselves at greater risk. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Parker joined the group as they toured the weapons testing facility. The aliens examined human military technology with interest, but they seemed more puzzled than impressed. Your weapons are effective but limited, observed the gasping alien through its translation device. You have not developed planet-destroying capabilities. Most galactic species achieve such weapons early in their development. Ben frowned. We have the technology to build such weapons, but we choose not to. The power to destroy worlds is too dangerous to create. Even for defense? Asked Zethkar. Especially for defense, Ben replied. A weapon that can destroy a planet can destroy your own planet just as easily. As the day continued, the aliens became more and more confused by human behavior. They attended a meeting where human leaders debated whether to ask for immediate membership in the Galactic Council, or to wait until Earth was better prepared. Your species seems to voluntarily limit its own power, Zethkar observed during a private discussion with Jake and Lisa. This is unprecedented in our records. Lisa leaned forward in her chair. Ambassador, may I ask how other species typically behave when they join the council? Most species seek maximum benefit for themselves, Zethkar replied. They want access to advanced technology, new territories, and positions of power within the galactic hierarchy. And humanity? Jake asked. Humanity seems more concerned with responsibilities than benefits. You ask what duties you will have rather than what rewards you will receive. The evaluation was proceeding smoothly when an urgent alarm sounded throughout the space station. Jake rushed to the nearest communication panel and activated it. Commander, we're receiving emergency transmissions from the outer sensor network, came the voice of his communications officer. Multiple large objects approaching from outside the solar system. The computer identifies them as Kethmori bioships. The alien delegation immediately became agitated. Several of them began talking rapidly in their own languages. The crystal being actually changed color from blue to a warning red. Kethmori? Lisa asked. We've never heard of them. Ambassador Zethkar's 3 eyes all focused on Jake. Commander Murphy, your species is in immediate danger. The Kethmori swarm has not been seen in this region of space for over 300 years. They are a hive mind species that consumes entire worlds. How many ships? Jake asked his communications officer. Initial count shows over 10,000 vessels, sir. Each one is roughly the size of a small city. The aliens looked at each other with what appeared to be fear and resignation. Commander, Zethkar said sadly, I regret that our evaluation must end here. Standard galactic protocol requires us to withdraw immediately. The Kethmori cannot be reasoned with or defeated by conventional means. Jake stared at the alien ambassador. You're leaving? There is no alternative. Every species that has encountered the Kethmori has either fled or been consumed. We will remember humanity fondly. But Jake was not listening anymore. He was already activating the station's emergency communication system to contact Earth's military command. As the alien delegation prepared to return to their ship, Jake began issuing orders that would transform humanity from a peaceful species into something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Kate Harrison stood in the war room deep inside Earth's military headquarters. The massive screen on the wall showed the incoming Kethmori fleet as red dots moving toward the solar system. Each dot represented a bioship filled with millions of hostile creatures. How long until they reach Earth? Kate asked the young officer at the sensor station. 72 hours at their current speed, Admiral, Lieutenant Sarah Kim replied. The fleet consists of 12,847 confirmed vessels. Mass analysis suggests each ship contains between 1 and 5 million individual Kethmori organisms. Kate studied the display with calm eyes. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years, but humanity had never faced anything like this. Still, her voice remained steady when she spoke. Send word to all fleet commanders. Implement Defense Plan Omega. All civilian populations are to be moved to underground shelters immediately. On the space station New Geneva, the alien delegation was preparing to leave. Ambassador Zethkar moved through the docking bay with his 3 eyes focused on the floor. His usually confident movements seemed slow and tired. Commander Jake Murphy followed the alien ambassador. You said every species either runs or gets destroyed. Has anyone ever tried to fight them? Zethkar paused at the entrance to his shuttle. Of course they have tried. The Mokari Federation sent their entire battle fleet against a much smaller Kethmori force 800 years ago. 30,000 ships with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. What happened? The Mokari no longer exist as a species, Zethkar said quietly. The Kethmori consumed their entire star system. Dr. Lisa Barnes approached carrying a datapad. Ambassador, we would like to know everything you can tell us about these creatures. Their biology, their tactics, their weaknesses. The crystal alien, whose name was Veltar, made a sound like breaking glass. Dr. Barnes, you do not understand. The Kethmori have no weaknesses. They are a perfect biological weapon created by evolution. Lisa sat down at a nearby table and activated her recording device. Tell me anyway. Humor a scientist who wants to understand what we're facing. For the next hour, the aliens explained what they knew about the Kethmori. Swarm. The creatures were part of a hive mind that had evolved on a world with no other life forms. They had consumed everything on their planet and then learned to travel through space. Each individual is about the size of your human dogs, explained the gas being called Nexus. But they think as one collective intelligence. They can reshape their bodies for different tasks. Some become warriors, others become builders, others become living weapons. Their ships are not built, added Veltar. They are grown. The ships are actually massive Kethmori organisms that can survive in space. The smaller creatures live inside like parasites. Jake asked the question that was bothering him most. If they're so powerful, why don't they just conquer the entire galaxy? They disappear for long periods, Zethkar explained. Sometimes centuries pass between attacks. Our scientists believe they retreat to the edge of the galaxy to reproduce and grow their numbers. Then they return to feed. Feed on what? Everything. They consume all organic matter on the worlds they attack. Plants, animals, bacteria, even the nutrients in the soil. When they finish with a planet, it is completely sterile. Down on Earth. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Parker was coordinating humanity's defensive preparations. Unlike the aliens expected, humans were not fleeing or hiding. Instead, every military base on Earth and throughout the solar system was buzzing with activity. Ben stood in front of a holographic map that showed the positions of every human ship and weapon in the solar system. The display looked nothing like the neat formations that galactic species typically used for battle. Status report from Mars Base, called out Major Nicole Davis from her communication station. All mining charges have been converted to military use, came the voice from Mars. We have approximately 50,000 improvised explosive devices ready for deployment. Ben nodded and made notes on his datapad. What about the asteroid belt mining platforms? Orbital mechanics teams have calculated trajectories for redirecting 17 large asteroids toward predicted Kethmori approach routes, reported Captain Greg Thompson. The rocks will impact with enough force to damage even their largest bioships. Colonel Frank Anderson entered the command center carrying a stack of technical manuals. Ben, the science teams have finished analyzing the biological samples the aliens provided. Dr. Patricia Young thinks she's found something interesting. Ben looked up from his planning. What kind of interesting? The Kethmori hive mind depends on constant communication between individuals. If we can disrupt that communication, the creatures might lose coordination. How do we disrupt it? Frank smiled grimly. Turns out their biological communication system is vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies. The same frequencies we use for some of our radio equipment. On the space station, the aliens were becoming increasingly disturbed by human behavior. Instead of panic or resignation, they observed something they had never seen before in a species. Facing the KETH single quotes Mori. Dr. Amy Foster was working with a team of human scientists to modify medical equipment. When Ambassador Zethkar asked what they were doing, she explained calmly, "We're preparing battlefield medical stations. When the fighting starts, there will be wounded soldiers who need immediate treatment." You plan to treat injured humans during a battle against the Kethmori? The spider-like alien clicked in amazement. Of course. We never leave our people behind. Zethkar's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. But treating wounded soldiers during combat reduces fighting efficiency. It requires resources that could be used for weapons. Amy looked at the alien with confusion. Ambassador, what good is winning a war if we lose our humanity in the process? The alien delegation gathered in their shuttle to discuss what they were observing. Their conversation was recorded by the human translation devices, though the humans were too busy with war preparations to listen at the time. These humans are behaving irrationally, Valtar observed. They are preparing to fight an enemy that cannot be defeated. More than that, added Nexus. They are preparing to fight while maintaining their civilian support systems. They refuse to abandon their weak and injured. Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. I have evaluated 47 species for council membership. Never have I seen a species that continues to follow moral guidelines when facing extinction. It will make their defeat more complete, the spider alien said with certainty. The Kethmori will consume them faster because they refuse to abandon their inefficient practices. But Zethkar was not so sure. Something about human behavior was different from every other species he had encountered. Back in Earth's command center, Admiral Kate Harrison was receiving reports from across the solar system. Human forces were moving into positions that made no sense according to standard galactic military doctrine. Admiral, Jupiter base reports they have finished modifications to the orbital defense platforms, announced Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera. They've been converted from mining lasers to high-energy weapons. What about the civilian evacuation ships? Kate asked. All non-essential personnel have been moved to the underground cities on Luna and Mars. The evacuation ships are being converted to support vessels for the fleet. Sergeant Danny Brooks approached the Admiral's station. Ma'am, the Special Forces teams are ready for deployment. All volunteers, as requested. Kate nodded. The Special Forces had a dangerous mission. They would attempt to board and capture Kethmori bioships during the battle. It was an insane plan that no other galactic species had ever attempted. Remember, Brooks, we want prisoners for interrogation. The science teams need live specimens to study. Understood, Admiral. The teams know the mission parameters. As the Kethmori fleet approached the outer edge of the solar system, humanity's preparations entered their final phase. Dr. Helen Price had worked for 3 days, straight analyzing the biological data provided by the aliens. I think I understand how their hive mind works, she announced to the assembled military leaders. It's like a biological internet. Each individual Kethmori is connected to every other through quantum-entangled neurons in their brains. Can we break those connections? Ben Parker asked. Possibly. But it would require getting close enough to their ships to deploy specialized electromagnetic pulse devices. How close? Helen looked uncomfortable. The devices would need to be placed directly on the hull of their bioships. It would be a suicide mission. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Sergeant Brooks spoke up. Doctor, how many of those devices could my team carry? Admiral Kate Harrison stared at the young sergeant. Brooks, you understand what you're volunteering. FOR, yes, ma'am. But if it gives humanity a chance to survive, my team is ready. As the meeting ended and the final preparations were completed, the alien delegation made their last attempt to convince humanity to flee. Commander Murphy, Zethkar said over the communication system, it is not too late. You could evacuate your population to distant colonies. Your species would survive even if Earth falls. Jake looked at the tactical display showing human forces, spread throughout the solar system in seemingly random patterns. Ambassador, with respect, running away isn't what humans do. The first Kethmori bioships entered Jupiter's radiation field at exactly 0300 hours. Captain Greg Thompson watched from the bridge of the human destroyer Eagle's Talon as the massive alien vessels approached. Each bioship looked like a giant sea creature made of dark metal and pulsing flesh. Contact established, reported his communications officer. We count 47 bioships in the first wave. Each one is approximately 3 miles long. Greg studied the enemy formation through his tactical display. The Kethmori ships moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish swimming through space. Their approach was exactly what human military analysts had predicted based on the alien delegation's information. They're following standard galactic battle doctrine, Greg observed. Tight formation, direct approach, preparing for a frontal assault. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Julie Watson, looked up from her station. Should we move to intercept, Captain? Negative. Let them come to us. Remember, we're not fighting their war. We're fighting our war. The Kethmori Collective Intelligence was confident as it guided the first attack wave toward the human defensive positions. The hive mind had analyzed the tactical data from thousands of previous conquests. Galactic species always fought the same way. They formed battle lines, engaged at maximum range with their most powerful weapons, and eventually retreated when their losses became too great. The humans appeared to be following this pattern. Sensor. Readings showed a small fleet of human ships positioned near Jupiter's largest moon. The collective calculated that these ships could be destroyed within minutes of engagement. What the Kethmori did not detect were the hundreds of human ships hiding throughout Jupiter's moon system, or the modified mining charges that had been secretly attached to dozens of asteroids, or the electromagnetic pulse generators that had been hidden inside what appeared to be communication satellites. They're taking the bait, Greg announced. To his crew, all ships prepare for Phase 1. The lead Kethmori bioship opened fire with weapons that had destroyed entire fleets in previous battles. Streams of living acid and bioelectric lightning lanced out toward the human vessels. The collective expected to see the human ships explode or flee. Instead, the human ships scattered in all directions like startled birds. None of them tried to return fire. They simply ran. For the first time in its evolutionary history, the Kethmori collective experienced something like confusion. Galactic species never fled immediately upon contact. They always attempted to fight first, following their programmed concepts of honor and tactical doctrine. Execute Phase 2, Greg ordered as his ship dove behind the cover of Jupiter's swirling atmosphere. Suddenly, Jupiter's radiation field exploded with electromagnetic pulses from the hidden generators. The pulses were specifically tuned to disrupt the quantum entangled neurons that the Kethmori use for hive-mind communication. The effect was immediate and devastating. Kethmori bioships throughout the attack formation suddenly lost contact with the collective intelligence. For the first time in millions of years of evolution, individual Kethmori found themselves thinking alone. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera monitored the battle from the command center on Mars. His screen showed the chaos erupting in the Kethmori formation as ships began moving independently, their perfect coordination shattered. The electromagnetic disruption is working better than expected, he reported to Admiral Kate Harrison. Enemy ships are breaking formation and attacking each other in some cases. Kate nodded grimly. Launch Phase 3? Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, human ships that had been disguised as mining platforms suddenly activated. These vessels had been modified with the most powerful engines humanity could build. Each ship was loaded with nuclear weapons and guided by volunteer crews who had accepted a one-way mission. Major Nicole Davis piloted one of these ships toward the largest Kethmori bioship. Her vessel looked like an ordinary cargo hauler, but its hull was packed with enough nuclear explosives to crack a small moon. "This is Hammer 1, beginning attack run," she reported calmly. "Target is the command bioship at coordinates 77 Alpha. The Kethmori bioship, now operating without hive mind guidance, fired its weapons at the approaching human vessel. But Major Davis had trained for this moment. She used techniques that no galactic species had ever developed: evasive flying patterns based on the movement of insects, random course changes that followed no logical pattern, and debris fields as cover. Her ship took multiple hits, but the human engineers had designed it to keep flying even with massive damage. Davis guided her crippled vessel directly into the bioship's hull and detonated her nuclear payload. The explosion tore a hole 300 meters wide in the alien vessel. Thousands of Kethmori organisms were killed instantly, and the bioship began leaking atmosphere and biological fluids into space. "Hammer 1 successful," reported the tactical officer monitoring the battle. "Enemy command ship is critically damaged." But the most shocking event for the Kethmori was still to come. Sergeant Danny Brooks led his Special Forces team in a boarding pod toward one of the smaller bioships. The pod was designed to punch through alien hull plating and create an airlock, allowing human soldiers to enter enemy vessels. The concept was completely alien to galactic warfare. In 3,000 years of recorded conflict, no species had ever attempted to capture an enemy ship intact during battle. The risks were too great and the tactical benefits too small, but humans had different ideas about the benefits of taking prisoners. "Breach successful," Danny reported as his team cut through the bioship's living hull. "We're inside the target vessel." The interior of the Kethmori ship was like nothing the human soldiers had imagined. The walls pulsed with organic rhythms, and the air was filled with a sweet smell that made their heads spin. Kethmori organisms scurried through corridors that were more like arteries than hallways. "Remember the mission parameters," Danny told his team. "We need live specimens for the science teams. Use tranquilizer weapons only unless your life is in immediate danger." The Kethmori inside the ship were in chaos. Cut off from the hive mind, they could not coordinate their response to the human invasion. Some attacked the soldiers, others tried to hide, and still others simply stood motionless as if waiting for orders that would never come. Danny's team worked their way toward what their intelligence suggested was the bioship's control center. Along the way, they used specially designed capture devices to take dozens of Kethmori prisoners. The aliens fought back, but they were used to operating as part of a collective. As individuals, they were much less effective. Dr. Helen Price monitored the mission from her laboratory on Earth. The live video feed from the boarding team showed her things that no human scientist had ever seen before. "The bioship appears to be a single massive organism," she noted in her recording. "The smaller Kethmori live inside it like beneficial bacteria in a human stomach. They're not just passengers, they're part of the ship's biological systems." As Danny's team reached the control center, they made an amazing discovery. The Kethmori who operated the ship's vital functions were not warriors. They were a specialized caste that had never learned to fight. Without the hive mind to coordinate with warrior castes, they were helpless. "Control center secured," Danny reported. "We have 17 prisoners, including what appears to be the bioship's pilot caste." Back in the main battle zone, Captain Greg Thompson was coordinating the next phase of the human attack. The Kethmori fleet was in complete disarray, with individual bioships moving in random directions and firing at anything that moved. Launched the psychological warfare program. Greg ordered Lieutenant Julie Watson activated a system that had never been used in galactic warfare. Speakers that broadcast sound directly into space using focused particle beams. The sound that emerged was carefully designed by human psychologists. It was the recorded screams and death cries of Kethmori organisms, taken from the bioships that had already been destroyed. The sounds were amplified and repeated on frequencies that the aliens used for communication. The effect on the Kethmori was immediate and terrible. The hive mind had never experienced the concept of fear because individual death had no meaning to a collective intelligence. But the isolated Kethmori now heard the sounds of their own species dying, and for the first time in their evolution, they felt afraid. Several bioships actually turned around and began fleeing back toward the edge of the solar system. Others continued to fight, but their attacks were wild and uncoordinated. Colonel Frank Anderson watched the battle from the command center and shook his head in amazement. The aliens were right about one thing. The Kethmori are perfect biological weapons, but they were designed to fight against civilized species that follow predictable patterns. Admiral Kate Harrison nodded. What happens when a perfect weapon meets an imperfect enemy that refuses to fight by the rules? The perfect weapon breaks, Frank replied, as the first battle wound down. Human ships began the dangerous work of recovering their dead and wounded. Even in the middle of combat, human crews risked their lives to rescue the survivors of destroyed vessels. The Kethmori could not understand this behavior. Resources spent on recovering damaged units were resources that could be used for continued fighting. The main Kethmori fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system 12 hours after the first battle ended. Admiral Kate Harrison studied the tactical display showing nearly 10,000 bioships arranged in a formation that stretched across millions of miles of space. They've learned from the first engagement, observed Colonel Frank Anderson. Look at their spacing. They're staying spread out to avoid electromagnetic pulse attacks. Kate nodded. The Kethmori collective intelligence was adapting to human tactics faster than expected. But humanity had been preparing for this possibility. Send the signal to all units, Kate ordered. Begin Operation Chaos Theory. Throughout the solar system, human forces began implementing tactics that no galactic species had ever conceived. Instead of forming defensive lines or preparing for traditional space battles, human ships started behaving in ways that seemed completely random. Captain Kevin Miller commanded a strike force of 50 modified cargo ships. Each vessel had been loaded with a different type of weapon. Some carried nuclear devices. Others had biological weapons designed specifically to target Kethmori organisms. And still others contained experimental energy weapons that had never been tested in combat. Remember the strategy, Kevin told his captains over the communication system. No predictable patterns, every ship uses different tactics. Make it impossible for them to adapt to our methods. The Kethmori collective watched the approaching human forces with growing confusion. Instead of the organized fleet movements it expected, the humans scattered in random directions. Some ships flew directly toward the bioships, others moved in wide circles, and still others seemed to be running away from the battle entirely. Dr. Patricia Young continued her work with the captured Kethmori specimens in her laboratory deep inside Earth's military headquarters. The aliens had been separated from each other to prevent them from re-establishing their hive-mind connection. How are you feeling? She asked the largest specimen, which had begun responding to the name Individual One. The creature's compound eyes focused on her with difficulty. I feel ... strange sensations. Are these what you call emotions? Describe them to me. Fear when I think about pain. Sadness when I remember the others who died in your attack. Curiosity about your species. The Kethmori paused. Is this normal for individual consciousness? Patricia made notes on her datapad. Yes, those are all normal emotions. You're learning to think for yourself. I do not like it, Individual One said. Thinking alone is frightening. In the collective, all thoughts were shared. No one was ever alone with their fears. But you're also free to make your own choices now, Patricia pointed out. The collective made all decisions for you. Now you can decide what you want to do. The concept seemed to terrify and fascinate the aliens simultaneously. In space, the battle was developing in ways that defied all military logic. Human ships were using tactics that seemed designed to confuse rather than destroy. Some vessels flew directly into Kethmori formations and then exploded in brilliant flashes that did little physical damage but created massive electromagnetic disruptions. Major. Julie Watson piloted her fighter through a swarm of smaller Kethmori organisms that had been released from a damaged bioship. Instead of shooting to kill, she used specially designed capture nets to trap dozens of the creatures alive. Specimen collection successful, she reported, bringing in 47 live subjects for interrogation. The Kethmori collective was becoming increasingly frustrated. Human tactics made no sense according to any known military doctrine. Humans seemed more interested in capturing prisoners than winning battles. They wasted valuable resources rescuing their own wounded during active combat. Most confusing of all, they followed strict rules about which targets they would and would not attack. Commander Rob Kelly led a squadron toward a massive Kethmori command bioship that was 3 times larger than any other vessel in their fleet. His tactical computer identified it as the central coordination hub for the entire swarm. Target acquired, Rob announced, beginning attack run on the primary command vessel. But as his squadron approached the bioship, his sensors detected something unexpected. Part of the massive vessel was filled with what appeared to be young Kethmori organisms in various stages of development. Abort attack, Rob ordered immediately. Target contains non-combatants. His wing commander, Captain Lisa Turner, questioned the order. Sir, destroying that ship could end the entire battle. The tactical advantage would be enormous. Negative, Rob replied firmly. We don't target nurseries. Find another way to disable the ship without harming the young. The Kethmori collective, monitoring the human communications, was completely baffled. No galactic species had ever shown concern for enemy offspring during combat. The concept was so alien that the collective began to wonder if it was misunderstanding human transmissions. Dr. Amy Foster worked frantically in the medical bay of the orbital station New Geneva. The station had been converted into a massive hospital to treat wounded soldiers from both sides of the conflict. Doctor, we have incoming casualties, announced her assistant, Nurse Karen Wells. 37 human wounded and 12 Kethmori prisoners who were injured during capture. Amy looked up from the human soldier she was treating. Set up the isolation ward for the Kethmori. Use the same medical protocols we developed for the first specimens. Ma'am, some of the staff are questioning why we're treating enemy wounded. Amy paused in her work. Because they're wounded, Karen. When someone is hurt and helpless, they stop being an enemy and become a patient. The Kethmori prisoners who were brought to the medical bay experienced something their species had never encountered: medical care from their enemies. Human doctors work to heal injuries and reduce pain without asking for anything in return. One of the wounded Kethmori, which the medical staff called Patient 7, spoke to Dr. Foster through the translation device. Why do you heal us? We came to consume your world. Amy checked the alien's vital signs on her medical scanner, because it's the right thing to do. Just because we're at war doesn't mean we stop being decent people. I do not understand the concept of decent. It means choosing to do good things even when no one forces you to. Patient 7 was quiet for a long time, processing this idea. The space battle continued for 18 hours, with human forces using increasingly creative tactics. Some ships pretended to be destroyed and then attacked when Kethmori vessels came to investigate the wreckage. Others used holographic projectors to create false targets that drew enemy fire away from real human positions. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera coordinated a particularly unusual attack. His team had modified a group of asteroid mining robots to carry explosive charges. The robots were programmed to burrow into Kethmori bioships and plant charges in specific locations that would disable rather than destroy the vessels. Mining bots are in position, Alex reported. Detonating charges in 3, 2, 1. The explosions were carefully calculated to damage the bioship's propulsion systems while leaving their life support intact. Dozens of Kethmori vessels found themselves stranded but alive, their crews unhurt but unable to continue fighting. Recovery teams, begin prisoner collection, Alex ordered. Standard protocols for handling enemy wounded. The Galactic Council delegation watched the battle from their ship at the edge of the solar system. Ambassador Zethkar found himself witnessing something that challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. "They're not trying to destroy the enemy," he observed to his fellow ambassadors. "They're trying to capture them." Veltaris crystal form flickered with confusion. But captured enemies require resources to maintain. It reduces fighting efficiency. "Perhaps," Zethkar replied slowly, "efficiency is not their primary goal." As the battle reached its climax, the Kethmori Collective made a desperate decision. It ordered all remaining bioships to converge on Earth itself for a final attack. If the humans would not fight according to galactic military doctrine, the Collective would force them to defend their homeworld in a traditional battle, but Admiral Kate Harrison had anticipated this move. Earth's defense grid activated, revealing weapons that had been hidden throughout the solar system for decades. Instead of the massive planet-destroying devices that most galactic species developed, Earth's defenses consisted of thousands of smaller, precisely targeted weapons. "Fire control, engage enemy vessels approaching Earth," Kate ordered. "Use minimum necessary force. Our goal is to stop them, not exterminate them." The space around Earth lit up with weapons fire, but the human defensive strategy was unlike anything the Kethmori had encountered. Instead of trying to destroy every enemy ship, the humans targeted specific systems, engines, weapons, communication arrays, within hours. The entire Kethmori fleet found itself disabled but intact. Thousands of bioships drifted helplessly in space, their crews alive but unable to fight or flee. Dr. Patricia Young received an urgent communication from her laboratory. Individual 1, the first Kethmori to experience prolonged individual consciousness, had made a request that shocked everyone who heard it. "Dr. Young," the alien said through the translation device, "I wish to speak with your military leaders." "Why?" "I want to propose something that has never happened in the history of my species." 3 weeks after the battle ended, Ambassador Zethkar stood in the observation deck of the orbital station New Geneva. Outside the windows, he could see something that no one in galactic history had ever witnessed: Kethmori bioships working alongside human vessels to repair battle damage. Dr. Patricia Young joined the alien ambassador at the viewing window. She carried a thick folder of research papers documenting her work with the captured Kethmori specimens. "The transformation is happening faster than we expected," she told Zethkar. "Once they experience individual consciousness for more than 72 hours, they seem unable to return to the hive mind permanently." Zethkar's 3 eyes focused on a nearby bioship where human and Kethmori crews were working together to repair damaged hull sections. "This defies everything we know about their species." "Maybe we didn't know as much as we thought," Patricia replied. "Individual 1 has been teaching us about their true nature. The hive mind wasn't their natural state. It was something they developed as a survival mechanism on their original world." Below them in the station's main conference room, Admiral Kate Harrison was meeting with Individual 1 and 12 other Kethmori who had volunteered to serve as representatives for their species. The meeting was being broadcast to the entire Galactic Council. "The terms of surrender are simple," Kate explained to the assembled aliens. "Your species agrees to end all aggressive expansion. In return, humanity will provide territory where your people can learn to live as individuals." Individual 1 spoke for the group. "We accept these terms. But we request something additional." "What?" "We want to learn your concept of morality." The collective mind understood only hunger and survival. Individual consciousness allows us to consider concepts like right and wrong. Kate looked around the table at the other Kethmori representatives. Each one showed signs of the personality development that amazed human psychologists. Some appeared curious, others seemed frightened, and a few displayed what could only be described as hope. "We can arrange for teachers," Kate agreed. "But learning morality is not something that can be forced. It must be chosen freely." "We understand," Individual 1 replied. "Choice is the most frightening and wonderful thing we have discovered about individual consciousness. General Chris Taylor entered the conference room carrying a communication device. "Admiral, we're receiving transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you immediately." Kate activated the communication system, and the holographic images of a dozen alien species appeared around the conference table. At the center was Council Chairman Vorthak, a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark and glowing leaves. "Admiral Harrison," Chairman Vorthak began, "the Council has reviewed the reports of your conflict with the Kethmori swarm. We must ask, how is this possible?" "Which part, Chairman?" "All of it. No species has ever defeated the Kethmori in battle. No species has ever negotiated with them. And certainly no species has ever convinced them to abandon their aggressive nature." Kate looked at Individual One, who nodded encouragingly. "Chairman, I think the problem is that no species ever tried to understand them instead of just fighting them." Ambassador Zethkar spoke up from his position at the table. "Admiral Harrison, the Council has a proposal. We would like humanity to take a leadership role in galactic defense." "What kind of leadership role?" Chairman Vorthak's leaves rustled with what appeared to be nervousness. "For 3,000 years, the Council has maintained peace through a balance of power. Each species contributes military forces, and conflicts are resolved through negotiation or limited warfare." "That sounds reasonable," Kate replied. "But your species has introduced concepts that we do not understand." "You fight with overwhelming force but show mercy to defeated enemies. You follow moral guidelines even when they reduce your tactical advantages. Most importantly, you seem capable of ending conflicts permanently rather than just winning battles." Dr. Susan Blake, Earth's chief diplomat, joined the conversation from her office in the United Nations building. "Chairman, what exactly are you proposing?" "We want human military advisors to train Council defense forces in your methods. We want to learn how to fight wars that actually end instead of just pausing until the next conflict." Kate exchanged glances with the other humans in the room. "That's a significant responsibility." "Yes," Chairman Vorthak agreed. "But recent events have shown that humanity possesses something the galaxy desperately needs: the ability to turn enemies into allies." Over the following months, human military instructors began working with defense forces throughout galactic civilization. Colonel Frank Anderson established training centers on 17 different worlds, teaching alien military officers concepts that had never existed in galactic warfare. "The first rule of engagement," Frank explained to a class of alien officers, "is that your goal is not to destroy the enemy. Your goal is to stop the conflict." A Vorthani officer raised one of his 4 arms. "Instructor Anderson, how can you stop a conflict without destroying those who started it?" "By giving them a reason to choose peace over continued fighting," Frank replied. "Sometimes that means demonstrating that you can destroy them if necessary, but it always means offering them an alternative to destruction." The concepts were difficult for galactic species to understand. They had spent thousands of years viewing warfare as a zero-sum game where one side had to be completely defeated for peace to exist. Captain Ryan Cole worked with alien special forces units, teaching them techniques that seemed contradictory to everything they knew about combat. "Your mission is to capture enemy leaders alive whenever possible," Ryan explained to a group of crystal-based warriors from the Veltar Collective. "Dead enemies can't negotiate. Living enemies can choose to become allies." "But Instructor Cole," one of the crystal beings asked, "doesn't this make warfare more dangerous for our soldiers?" "In the short term, yes," Ryan admitted. "But in the long term it makes warfare unnecessary." The most successful training program was run by Dr. Patricia Young, who taught alien psychologists how to communicate with enemy species during conflicts. "Every species has psychological vulnerabilities," she explained to her students. "But instead of exploiting those vulnerabilities to cause suffering, we use them to create opportunities for peaceful resolution." Individual One often assisted with these classes, describing what it felt like to experience individual consciousness for the first time. "The humans could have destroyed our entire species," Individual One told a group of alien students. "Instead, They showed us that we could choose to be something other than weapons of destruction. The transformation of galactic military doctrine was not without challenges. Many species found human methods too complex or morally demanding. Some argued that showing mercy to enemies was a sign of weakness that would encourage aggression, but the results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months of implementing human-style conflict resolution, the number of active wars in galactic civilization dropped by 60%. More importantly, conflicts that were resolved using human methods stayed resolved instead of reigniting after brief truces. Ambassador Zethkar submitted his final evaluation report to the Galactic Council 1 year after first contact with humanity. The document would become one of the most important texts in galactic history. Humanity represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of warfare and conflict resolution, he wrote. They have demonstrated that the most effective way to end wars is not through superior firepower, but through superior moral authority. Human military doctrine is based on a paradox. They become more effective in combat by limiting their own actions through ethical guidelines. They gain strategic advantages by showing mercy to defeated enemies. They achieve lasting victories by offering alternatives to total defeat. Most importantly, humanity has proven that the ultimate goal of warfare should not be the destruction of enemies, but their transformation into allies. This concept challenges everything we thought we knew about the nature of conflict. The Council voted unanimously to establish the Human Galactic Defense Corps, with Admiral Kate Harrison as its first commander. The new organization would be responsible for training alien forces in human military methods and responding to conflicts throughout galactic civilization. Dr. Helen Price was appointed as the Corps' chief science officer responsible for developing new technologies that supported human-style warfare. Her first project was creating better non-lethal weapons that could disable rather than destroy enemy forces. Individual 1 accepted an appointment as the Corps' first Kethmori advisor. The former hive mind creature now served as a bridge between humanity and other species that might benefit from learning individual consciousness. The humans taught us that strength without compassion is just destruction. Individual 1 explained to new recruits during orientation sessions, but compassion without strength is just weakness. True power comes from combining both. As the Human Galactic Defense Corps began operations throughout the galaxy, other species started to understand why humanity was considered the most terrifying combatant species. It was not because humans were the strongest or most technologically advanced. It was not because they had the most powerful weapons or the largest fleets.